Happy Wednesday, and this is the time of the week where Inside Ball brings a superstar into the studio. 4 premierships, millions of tries. He's an absolute superstar, an iconic Brisbane Bronco, and he shares a very, very fun fact of you and I, Kevie.
What's that, mate?
He's a father of 5. The great Pearl, Steve Renouf. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good boys. Thanks, Dobbo. Kevin.
Pearl, how are you, mate?
Mate, I'm great, actually, and thanks for getting me on.
Oh, mate, we're so blessed to have you on. We've, obviously we played a lot of footy together, and I've got nothing but admiration and respect for you and your career, because I feel like that you made, everyone says Alfie and me, we were good, but you and I, like, you made me look so much better than I ever was. And I remember watching you play the first time for the Broncos. It was in one of those Panasonic Cup. I wasn't even at the Broncos.
Yeah.
And you were this skinny little Indigenous lad with your headgear. But you hit the way you ran that night. Do you remember the game up in Townsville?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it was against Parramatta.
I don't think you scored, but did you score a try?
Yeah, I scored 2.
See, I've done my research. That's right. I'm getting confused with your NRL debut.
I was on the wing.
Right. But, mate, your tries, like, did you – your record – you got the record at the Broncos, 142, right, in 183 games. So that's nearly won a game, right? On top of that, you've scored 11 hat-tricks.
Oh, was that right? I never thought about the hat-trick.
And 5 times you scored 4 tries in a game. In fact, one game against the Bulldogs, I think you scored all of the tries for the Broncos. Yeah. You must have.
Yeah.
I think that was in the
93, that was.
Yeah.
ANZ.
And so many of your tries have been famous, and we'll get to them. But, you're an inductee of the Hall of Fame, the NRL Hall of Fame. That happened last year.
Yeah, that was just something special for me. I mean, that topped off my career. Knowing we've done everything in rugby league, and our grand finals, Origin, and playing for our country. But then to get that honour, because there's no, for me, there's got to be no higher honour than that. So it was a lot of respect.
Right. So, mate, can I ask you this? And I knew you come from near Wondai there, and you're a Mergen Mustang. But am I right in saying you're one of 12?
Yeah, one of 12, I am.
One of 12 children. Whereabouts do you sit?
I'm number 10 of 12, so I'm down the bottom. I'm one of the babies. So I've got 8 sisters and 3 brothers.
Wow.
But I'm smack bang in the middle of all my sisters at the bottom end. So it probably says a lot of things about me, Kevie, over the years.
Yes.
That I grow up, and my sisters.
Big family.
Big family, and still very protected today. And we just had a great family unit for the whole, the 12 of us. It was awesome growing up.
So,
go on.
So you're close to them, like you're close growing up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to get to your career, and there's so many questions, but I've always wondered, it's got to come from somewhere. So was mum or dad, who were the sports people in your family or in the bloodlines? Where did this unbelievable talent come from?
Well, all I know, we say Dad, because Dad, he was a professional sprinter back in the day. Charlie Renouf, yeah. So he was a professional sprinter.
Was he?
Yeah, he used to do a lot of professional sprinting here at the Gabba. Oh, not the Gabba, sorry, the RNA back in the day.
Right.
And he did a bit of boxing, which those genes didn't pass on to me, as you know, Kevin.
They didn't, mate.
But the coordination would have. Obviously, to be boxed, you need timing and coordination. So that's passed.
Yeah, and I think because Mum was having babies for a very long time, she didn't get to play sport, obviously. She was just rearing kids.
Wow, And your mum, Nerida, and Charlie?
Yeah, Nerida. Yeah, Nerida. Yeah.
Nerida. Like, that must have been so much fun growing up, like with all your...
It was, and it worked out well from them towards the end because, we always split ourselves. There's, sort of 6 and 6, the young ones and the older ones. But Mum and Dad, when we were growing up, always had babysitters. So they could go off and do what they wanted.
Because you're the siblings
the older siblings and
babysitter. Yeah, I get it, right.
I get that. So how old's the oldest?
What's the spread?
What's the spread?
Oh, this is a tough one. So my sister, she's the youngest, so she's got to be 3 years younger than me, so that makes her 52.
Yeah.
51 or 52. And then I think Billy, who was my eldest brother, was 20 years older than her. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'd be 72.
Yeah, he's passed, but he would have been 72. So it was fair spread, and we always, because me and my sister Sonia, who's 18 months younger than me, growing up we looked pretty much like twins.
Right.
And I used to always go to mum and say, "You sure you're not telling us or something?" and some of us to say like, "Were any of us adopted or fostered?" No, she goes, "You guarantee you weren't."
Yeah. So how was your childhood, man? What'd you do? How'd you feel like school? School was okay?
Yeah, when I first started school, like I think a lot of kids went along kicking and screaming, and that was a lot of things going to school. I really enjoyed school in Mergen, right through Mergen Primary, then the Mergen High. But really, I can't complain. I thought it was great, and the proud thing about what my parents did is there's 12 of us, and we all went to grade 12.
12, yeah.
And,
it's a great achievement, hey?
Yeah, it is for a big family, especially for an Indigenous family, because I went to school with a lot of lads who come in. When you get to grade 8, all the Sherburg kids come in.
Yeah.
And they majority of them weren't in primary school with us. And look, there's a
new
lot
faces.
of them didn't graduate with us, you know what I mean?
Didn't finish school, yeah?
Yeah, didn't finish school, and that's a sad thing, but that's just the way it was.
Yeah, so you were fast as a kid. You made state titles or something here?
Yeah, I did state titles a couple of times down here.
Do you remember what sort of times you used to run as a kid?
Oh, look, mate, I really don't, you know.
Well, just make one up and tell us how fast you were, mate.
Oh, when I was a kid, this is young,
Yeah.
you know, so all I can remember is 13 or 14. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, but what about when you got a bit older?
It's funny, when I got to senior, I concentrated on my footy, and I reckon both the times we trialled for Wide Bay to come down to the States, I had some sort of footy injury.
So you never got there?
Yeah, never really got there, and I was 100 metre. I didn't like running too much over 100 metres.
Yes.
So
actually, 100 was the maximum.
Maximum, that's it.
Right.
200, like, yeah.
No good to you.
Pearl, Mergen Mustangs junior footy. I'm fascinated because I, never ever played anything of any professional sense. But Kevie was at Ipswich. But how does Steve Renouf get found, and who discovers you, and how did that come about?
I like that question, Dobbo, because it's funny, but I've worked it out over the years. I was playing rep since I was under 12s, schoolboys, and what you realise along the way is, and then I made the Queensland under 16s, right? So I'm 16, and unbeknownst to us, because we didn't have managers, there weren't too many scouts around back in the day, and so from the bush, I think once you start getting close to that state system, you get noticed. And what I do remember, Andrew G and I and a couple of other boys were playing in under 16 state titles at Warwick, and I lost my headgear. And so they
famous headgear.
Yeah, the famous headgear. I was wearing headgear back then, so I lost it, and someone said, "Oh, the selectors have it. They're down in that bus down at the end."
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so I go down the end, and I stick my head in. I go, "Oh, Steve running for Wide Bay," and they go, "You're looking for this?" And it was the Origin selectors.
Oh.
So they were selecting the state Queensland under 16. So
do you remember who the selectors were?
Beatty, who else was it? Les.
Oh, the actual Origin selectors.
Origin selectors. Les.
Oh, Beatty.
Canardley.
Yeah.
And who was the third one?
Oh, look.
Yeah, so they were selecting under Queensland under 16s. So straight away you're a target. Especially if you get selected in that team. As I said, Andrew G and I think Craig Teaven are the three I can remember that were selected in that Queensland 16s team.
So the headgear, why the headgear, mate? Was it?
Mate, go back a couple of years or a year prior to that 16s, I was just playing at home. We're playing against Sherburg. It's Mergen and Sherburg rivals, and I'm stuck in the middle because my mum grew up in Sherburg, and all my mob were from there. But I end up, one of the boys got a bit rough with me and landed on my head and knocked me out. I spent the night in hospital, and
wow,
my mum virtually said, "You're not allowed to play, and if you don't, your dad's bought you headgear.
Right.
You're not going to play if you don't."
Madison?
Wear it. No, back then. No, I can't even remember.
What about Steeden?
Steeden. What did you wear?
No, it was an Alliance, the original.
Oh, yeah.
Other than Terry Madison and Mal Cochrane, maybe, not a lot of players wore headgear at all in your era. That was... I'm not saying it was seen as like,
I know exactly.
But you know what I'm saying?
I was a bit wary. I think I was the first to wear it in the South Burnett Rugby League, to be honest.
Is that right?
Yeah, and so I was sort of... But I'd have it on and off.
You didn't have a choice though, Pearl.
I know.
Your mum said
it.
Exactly.
If your mum tells you something...
Exactly. And then when I did sign for the Broncos, I was a bit wary then. I thought, do I really will I wear this or what? So, which I did.
I love the fact that, so, okay, 16 reps. We've got to thank our fact checker, but today, would you believe, is exactly 36 years to the day since you made your debut for the Broncos.
Oh, really?
2nd of April, 1989.
Wow.
You make your debut for the Brisbane Broncos. So it's literally 36 years. Can you remember how?
So it was West.
That's his. Yeah.
His NRL debut.
NRL debut.
Yeah.
So it was West. We were playing West at Campbelltown.
Yeah.
I was on the wing. It was wet. Wet and soggy. I was outside of Chris Johns, I think. He was my centre. Yeah, and that's all I remember. And it was just, I think we won at 8-4. It was a really tight game. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
You blokes all grew up playing rugby league, and there was no Broncos. 88 Broncos came in. So I'm fascinated, Kev. I mean, you went to Canberra, but you won't, I mean, the Broncos weren't around when you were thinking. So if you thought you were going to play professional rugby league, where were you going to go? Was Sydney, like Kev went to Canberra, or you weren't even in that mindset?
I wasn't in that mindset because I remember there was a guy, Ed Scott, who came from Brisbane.
Yeah.
So Ed Scott was running the YMCA at Merkin.
Yeah.
And so I go away, play open schoolboys in Perth, and I came back from the Perth trip, and I think we came about third, Queensland, and I flew back into Brisbane, and the two guys from Newcastle, because Newcastle was starting the same year, they offered me that they were going to sign me on my way back.
So that was 87, was it?
87. They were at the airport. Alan McMahon and
Alan McMahon.
David Waite.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they were there. And because I was 17, my mum and dad picked me up. And my dad's smart. He just said, look, we'll take the contract. We'll get back to you. You know, because I was thinking, just sign it straight away. We'll be right.
Yeah.
So I nearly signed with the Knights. But then when I went home, Ed Scott just said, what do you want to do with your career? This is my mind thought, where it was going at 17. And I said, I just want to play A grade, because I played a bit of A grade and under 19s. And I said, just want to play A grade. And he goes, that's
for the Mustangs.
And he goes, for the Mustangs. And he goes, no, I was talking something different.
A bit higher than that, Stephen.
Exactly.
A lot of good Mergen Mustangs, though. I mean, Cooper, there's been a lot of good Mergen Mustangs.
There's been a lot, mate. Brian Niebling, who went before me. And so the thing was, he just said, no, look, I know John Rebo and all the boys, and which he did. He said, I'll send him a letter. He sent him a letter back then, and I'll put you up. So he virtually acted as my manager, and that was the first year. So Wayne Bennett drove up to Mergen to meet me and the family. And we were like, Wayne Bennett's coming to our house. Mum gives him a cup of tea and biscuit or something. And then he drives back, and then 3 weeks later, they get in contact with him and say, we're going to sign him. John Rebo came up, and we signed the contract at the YMCA with Mum and Dad. I got a photo of it that was in the Courier Mail. Or it might have been the South Bennett Times, actually. Yeah. Exactly. But I got the photo with Reeves there, and they signed a 3-year contract when I was still at high school, so in the first year.
So as a kid, did you must have watched some sort of senior football?
Yeah, I watched the big league on Saturday, and that's I grew up following South in Brizzy because of Mal Meninga. I love Mal Meninga, right?
Yeah.
And then I got to watch Wally Lewis and all those guys, and we only every now and then we get the Sydney footy. Yeah. So all my focus was all on Brizzy footy, to be honest.
To get to play in the
and then I go
amazing,
smack bang into the ARL at the time with the Broncos.
Yeah. So when you first came to Brisbane, which club did you play for?
South. I had a bit of a South. Yeah, because Benny knew that, and he coached there, so he obviously organised that, and so I played mostly Colts. Got called up. It's funny because the A grade made the minor premiers that year.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got called up for the last 2 games. We didn't know it was going to be the last 2. We lost both of the semis. So
bang, you're out.
Bang, I'm out.
Yeah. Now, Narelle, my wife, does all the research for you, right? Now, I'm just going to go back a bit here. The under-16s team, did Wayne Bennett come up and run a training session, and you mysteriously couldn't finish?
Yeah, I got injured.
He's got a history of not training this one, mate. And I'll tell a story later about Pearl and some hills, but a bit like Lottie, can find the shade pretty quickly.
Loved it.
He was no different to me. But it was funny because Wayne Bennett, we were like, Wayne Bennett's come to give us a session. They organised it. We were in the Nango, and I think we're in the Wide Bay team, and And I was like, oh, Jesus, it's hard. he just come up and just flogged the crap out of
Yeah,
us.
and you didn't take for that, and you never took it throughout your whole career, did you? Really? But anyway, that's all good. That's all good.
I love the fact that Kevie comes to the side. You join the Broncos, and I'm not going to say you guys had instant success, but 90 was a building year, 91 was another year, and then you get to 92. Now, there's so much that goes on but before that, there had been a little bit of, and I don't know where I read this, that there'd been criticism about your ability, and Wayne Bennett just backed you every single time. And, I mean, history will show how much you paid back in dividends. But can you remember that time when you were just starting to crack into grade? There is a little bit of criticism. Can this bloke make it or not? But you were with some unbelievable footballers. You had the King there. There's out-and-out footballers. You're a young'un, and Bennett saw something that everybody else got to see, but he saw it before everybody.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little story. I was only telling someone this story the other day that in 89, because I was in and out of first grade and reserve grade, and I debuted in 89, he signed within the next couple of years, 89, 90, 3 international centres, right? So Tony Curry, Peter Jackson, and Dale Shearer.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting on a young centre, and I always knew I was going to start on the wing, but in my mind I always wanted to be a centre. So I had a one-on-one with him, because I got no manager, and I'm 19 or 20, and I'm going. So we had a meeting. I said, look, I just got a bit of a query. I don't know the word I used at the time, but I said, you just signed those 3 players, and
they're all established Origin players.
Origin
all guns.
And Australian.
Australian players. And I said, so I'm in and out of reserve grade, and I just said, look, I don't know, what do you think? What do you think of? What do you think, Wayne? That where do you want me to play? Because I'm a centre. I want to be a centre. And this wasn't coming out this easy either, just quietly. Yeah. But I got there, and he said, you play that good, I can't keep you out of first grade.
Good words, hey.
And that was it for me. It was just click. And that's when Wayne says stuff, and we learnt this. You learn that you didn't know it along the way, but when he said something, he said it to your face. He meant it.
Yeah.
And he's always been that way with me.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I went out, and I was playing pretty good in reserve grade, scoring a heap of tries, and then we won the premiership in 1990. The reserve grade,
yeah.
Who
else was in that side, Pearl?
Who else? Well, the Plowman
Captain
boys,
was Ray Herring.
Ray Herring, Johnny Plath, he was in that side. James Donnelly, he was there. I think Scotty Tronk.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of players in and out.
It was against the Raiders, wasn't it?
Yeah, against the Raiders. Yeah,
yeah. I remember watching it.
I was marking up against Bally.
Oh, Craig Bellamy.
Right?
No, Bally.
Mark
Bell.
Yeah, Mark Bell. Yeah. The human javelin. How'd you go? Did you tell him up?
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't too bad. He's not a bad player.
Yeah,
Bally.
Mate, I'm going to speak out of school a bit here. This kid coming through, he was special. You knew he was going to be.
What was he like when you used to do semi-opposed, Kev? Because he would have been in the opposite.
Well, there was no semi-opposed then. It was all just trained by yourself in different. But we knew the Pearl. We knew 2 things about him. Right, he was very fast, and the second thing, he didn't like training. But if he was very fast and the way he played, the way this bloke played, was next level. Right, and he wasn't the greatest of trainers, and that's the thing where I've got to give Wayne a huge rap. So he gets to know people and their personality. So he picked up straight away on Pearl that, mate, this kid's going to be good. So, there's going to be a bit of tolerance here for how he trains and when he trains. And Kelvin Giles was one of the best. Him and Steve Nance really transformed the club as far as physical. Players talking, I hear, Maguire talking about how hard he trains at Broncos. Well, mate, we didn't train. No one's trained harder than what we trained in those days. Yep. Right, and there are exceptions for some. There was a hill at Kelvin Grove where the college is now. It's sort of built in now, but it would have been 30 metres long and really steep pitch, right? And that's where we did a lot of our hill work. But Pearl, because of his, because he was a good player and he could score tries, didn't run the hills.
Never ran the hills.
And we'd all start marching over, and Pearl he'd be over there and. He might have done one, and he'd come back down, and his hamstring was tied or his ass was sore. So Wayne would go and sit him on the hill, and he'd just watch us with a big smile on his face.
That was
Feeling guilty, but like, oh, glad I'm not doing that.
Wincing and pain.
But to be fair, we knew that
it would be done when it mattered.
In the game, you throw him the ball, mate, and it was try time, baby.
Were you a diabetic by this stage? Diagnosed diabetic by this stage?
No, I got diagnosed early ൡ93, so just after
you won. So, okay, I'll go back because I want to get to that. 92 is, it will go down in history as the first premiership Brisbane ever win. But I always say, and I've said this to both of you, and I've never actually talked to you about this, the greatest try is now and still is the outball that you score that try. Is this something you guys worked on? Like, you know, like it was...
Well, can I be honest here? I'm pretty sure you did it with Johnsy.
Chris Johns was
prior to
Andrew Johns, who's no relation to Chris, obviously. He calls Chris Johns every time he sees him the original outball.
Right,
but the original outball was for Johns, Chris Johns. He was very explosive.
Yeah.
And it was a more natural pass for me to do to Johnsy. And I'm not even sure where we picked it up from. I think it was just a training thing.
Was it planned with this?
Oh, it was planned. Yeah, it was planned. Sometimes it was planned. Other times this guy and Johnsy was very good at it too. They just get on the outside of their defender and they were gone. And the ball. Yeah, well, you can explain.
So, Kevie and I, it was nothing really ever said.
No.
And a couple of times, but it was more like a little nod, and I go, yeah. Or a lot of times I said no.
No. Well, that's another. That's
I
another
just did the
story.
shaker then.
No.
Yeah. And the perfect example of that, if you don't mind me saying, was the '92 World Cup in England.
Yeah.
So we're struggling. No one wants to be the first team to lose a World Cup or anything in Western Australia. Kevie comes off the bench. And this is honest to God, and I've told you this, Kevin, I didn't watch that match probably for 18 months after. And I finally watched it. And this bloke here changed the whole dynamic of that game that day. We were struggling. And it was all penalty kicks scored. Kevie comes on with about 20 minutes to go. And he just got busy. And he kept saying to Pearl, we'll do the outball. And I'm going, no. And I'm shaking my head. And you watch the replay. He's actually come across the back of the ruck and forced me into it. I saw him coming. I thought, I've got to get there. And lo and behold, it worked.
Poor old Johnny Devereaux was
He got bamboozled that day.
Well, he did it to every centre, and Johnsy was good at it too. But he did it used to do it to every centre, and I used to laugh to myself, thinking, mate, you're in for a towel up today. Pearl is on, and some games, he wasn't on, and I'd have to say to him, listen here, mate. I said, the ball, they're going to do 2 carries in there, and then I'm going to get the ball off Alf. You can make us look either really, really good or absolute garbage. That's up to you. He'd go, all right, and I'm praying, oh, please be ready, Pearl, please. So I wouldn't even look then. I just knew that he would be just coming on, and so I'd get the ball off Alf, and then I'd just sort of half look, and I'd think, oh, thank the Lord, look at this. And it was poetry in motion, mate, this way.
Can I ask you, is it the greatest pass you've ever thrown, best try assist ever? Because every single bloody highlight reel of a grand final is Pearl running, and Kevin Walters never gets any credit for it. It's always you and Nick Hancock diving over you, and there's no Kevie, nowhere to be seen.
Only because I couldn't catch him.
One night I was there doing nothing. I was probably had a few beers, and Kevie, remember this, I'm at home, so I'm recording all our tries. I've recorded all our tries on video, on the phone.
Yeah.
And I put them together. I sent them to you, remember? I said, hey, just have a look at this. And that wasn't all of them. Yeah. That's all the ones I had on hand. And it's just amazing how many times, and the commentary called it at times, how many times have we seen Walters to Renouf?
Yeah.
Heaps of times.
And it's the old thing, the Thurston dummy, the Langer dummy, they're going to do it. But you still got to stop it, And you'd see opposition centres trying to work him out. And I'm thinking,
poor old Ricky Walford.
Ricky Walford. That was the grand final try.
Grand final try. He had nothing. Poor old Ricky Walford.
The one I really do feel sorry for the opposition. Do you remember at SFS playing Manly and poor old Tezza Hill?
Oh, Terry Hill, yeah. God bless Terry.
God bless him.
Yeah.
And because we all got on with Tez, he was a lad.
Real knockabout.
And he's standing there, and we've been defending our line for about a shitload of tackles. 20 tackles or something, and then Kevie goes, do the ball? And I go, yeah, pretty good. We're good here. So we come down the blind side, and poor old Tez, I'm going in, I'm going out. He didn't know where I was going. Anyway, we just got him clean cold. It's the best. I reckon that's one of the better ones.
He said, "Shit, Kevin, wait till that to me, we're mates." You know,
we're mates.
on the way back, you know, he's walking. Don't do that to me again, we're mates.
What about? I've asked Kev this, but what was it like winning that first premiership for Brisbane? I mean, it changed. It certainly changed what the Broncos were. But can you remember? You were so young. Can you remember it?
Oh, yeah, I can. And it was just, we had no idea. We won. So when we won it, we were in Sydney, and we're like, yeah, you know, just jubilation. It was just, and a bit of, oh, I can't believe we're here, you know. But then where we really realised what it meant to Brisbane, Queensland, and everyone else who supported us is when we landed back here. Remember that? We landed at the Brisbane airport, and we had no idea. And I think I was carrying, I don't know, it wasn't the Winfield Cup. I was carrying the J.J. Gilton Shield up the entry with Michael Hancock.
Yeah.
And all we could hear was this buzz of a crowd. And we go, what's going on? Anyway, it was just the amount of people that came out to the airport and Airport Drive and then in the city. We just had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah, they were lined all the way from the airport,
back into
cars, and it was crazy.
It was crazy. Yeah,
and I think, did someone open up the latch of the bus and put things, and then it was just crazy. And how old you'd only been? How old were you then?
22.
22, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and that was the thing. And so we had no idea. Then we got to into the city, and then
hours.
Well, no, went to the club first. And Alf got, we all got body surfed over, and Alf got to the end and jocks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, I remember that night. It was a great night.
Oh, it was.
Back to back, it's one thing to win it, and we've seen what Penrith have done before, but it was very hard to win back to back. It was almost impossible. Canberra had done it. Brisbane did it. I know that you guys, both of you, but I feel like in a lot of ways you left a few in the tank. Like, I mean, you probably could have won more in that run early. And I understand you went on and won a lot more, but the second one, it was St. George Can't Play that you all were a part of.
No, there's a story behind that.
Okay, well, give us the story.
Do you remember the story, Pearl?
No.
Well, I'm going to remind you. So game day, we used to meet around the pool at the hotel we stayed in Sydney at the Brighton Les Sands, right? It's still there, the hotel, but when it was first built, it was brand new. So when we went to Sydney, we stayed in this 5-star hotel. That's what the Broncos are. So the idea of it was to take away any excuse for your performance. Oh, we're staying at a shitty hotel. Well, actually, you're not. It's nearly
5-star. I like
5-star,
that, yeah.
right? Take that out of the equation. So it was beautiful. It had a tennis court, pool, everything. So we used to meet on the day of the game and just play a bit of tennis just to get things moving. Wayne, or we'd play cricket. Anyway, it's grand final day. Wayne's got everyone around, and he's pulled out a piece of paper out of his sock. He's reading it. He said, I got a hold of the tip sheet that St. George put together, Brian Smith. Sure. Right. Fullback, Julian O'Neill. Won't pass the ball. He's a hog. Get stuck into him. Went through the whole list.
Is that right, the whole team?
The whole team. Kevin Walters. Can't tackle. Run at him. He'll miss tackles all day.
Did Wayne write this, or was this legitimate?
Let this be right. Gilmeister, smallest forward in the competition, overrated with his defence. Run at him. He won't hurt you. Lazarus should be retired. He's slow. Gavin Allen wouldn't knock the top off a custard. All
negative. Yeah.
Negative. About Pearl. Scored a try. He's slow. He's slowing. Every player he went through, it was just, he made it up. We didn't know.
You didn't know.
We only found out 2 years later.
That he just made it all up.
He made it up. It was an old trick that he learnt from Bobby Bax, right? So we left that meeting, all of us, like, I don't think so. He thinks so. I'm like, you serious, mate? Yeah. Do you remember, Phil?
Yeah, I do, mate. I do remember now. Because I remember mine was,
wow.
He'll get tired early and he can't tackle.
There you go. He went through every player. And, mate, it was like he knew the exact thing to say.
Trigger you all.
I think he even said about me, there's 3 Walters brothers playing but in the game, but he's probably, the most vulnerable, I'll show you. I should have got the man of the match.
Yeah, exactly.
But, so that was, and that's where the old Saints Can't Play, because Wayne, it was no fault of Brian Smith's or the Dragons. Wayne made it up. And he didn't tell us after the game. He let it go for a couple of years.
Unbelievable.
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
Can we ask, like, you win that 93, and we'll get to your Origin. Obviously, Kev's got a lot to talk about because I don't think you played enough Origin games, if I'm honest with you. You played a lot. I think I played 11. You should have played a lot more. But the diabetes, it slowed you down a little bit from a personal perspective when it happened. Just how did you come about, like, knowing, hey, at 24, and it's a really weird thing at 24 to be, diagnosed with diabetes.
So it was we were in England, the 92 World Cup. So I come back home and I'd lost a lot of weight in the off season, and I thought it was great. I think I lost 8 kilos. I was never that big, but I had put on a lot of weight through training with Kelvin, and I thought I was doing okay. I was not going to be in the fat club, which is great, and as we called it, and anyway, so I go to training, and I couldn't lift 5 kilo dumbbells. It just got into my muscle. Virtually I wasted all of that away. You go through fat first, then you go through muscle. And I had nothing on me and had no energy. So I just went and got blood tests. He sent me straight to the hospital, to Peter Friss. And I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, at 22. And I was like, and it was really hard, but Frissy gave me 2 options. And he said, look, there's 2 things you can do here. He says, 1, you look after it and you'll carry on with your career in footy. 2, you don't, you won't be playing footy for much longer.
Wow.
And I just got goosebumps and sad because I got goosebumps when he said it to me. And so straight away, I knew what I wanted to do. So he sent me to my endocrinologist just up the road from him, or down the road. And, I just did what I was told. Was pretty strict with it. I don't know if you remember this. So, I had to be strict with my food, and I started needling and testing. And we used to go to the one-day matches. Remember, we used to go to the one-day matches. And so this is obviously 93. We're at the one day, and I was just newly diagnosed, right? So we're on top of the old bar area.
The old gabba.
The old gabba. And I still remember, I came along with a little bag of my own lunch because I had to stick to it, and did not cop it. Got my packed lunch.
We would have thrown that to the crowd, mate. You're not a diabetic. Get a pie in your guts.
But, the boys they were really patient with me, and so it worked out. And look, I started that season, 93, after having been down 8 kilos and feeling like crap. I got my way back that quick that I actually started the season. And I put a couple of more kilos back on, and Wayne said, you feeling? I said, good. He said, well, you'll start the season. I was like, great.
Did it hinder you at all, do you think?
I don't think so, because when you talk about speed and you talk about strength, and you go forward to 94, that's, a year later, a season later, I was probably the strongest and probably one of my most successful years, because I'm pretty sure I got leading try scorer at 94.
Yep.
Yes,
and that was only a year after I was diagnosed.
Yeah, you did.
So you sort of it just meant that I got really strict on myself, and I think that's when things changed for me mentally, because I knew I had this.
I think you knew you had it for a while, because I watched some vision today of your grand final try in 92, and you were actually at the Sydney Football Stadium, and you took the person who was filming it through the try and how it all evolved. Do you remember doing that?
Yeah.
And then you stepped off to your left, and then you straightened, and you knew Ricky was there, and you ran past your mum, and you wanted to wave to your mum, and then you got closer to the line, you could hear Ricky behind you, and you thought, I'm not far away now. Please, legs, please don't give up on me now, because you knew that 100 metres was dead set your maximum. You were and you were running about 85 metres.
I was like, please don't lose this to me.
Yeah, but maybe even way back then you might, if you could feel your legs. I mean, you've just run 100 metres, so I don't know, but it was a great try. And I remember you scored the try and you just lied on the ground, and we had to all dive on you.
Mick, you know the story there. So what happened? So Mick comes down, he's on top of me. And then as Mick's pulling me up, Alf comes in. You watch Alf comes in, he goes, lie back down, give us a break. So then you'll see, like, Mick's picking him up, and Alf comes in and whistles to him, and then I just go, get away, lay back down. So you don't have to ask me twice.
Yeah, she's great times.
That happens. The Broncos are rolling along. Superleague. It changed. It's 30-year anniversary of Superleague, literally, as we speak, this week. And It was a big time, but for a proud Indigenous boy, like, you know, you wouldn't have been. What was your first contract at Brisbane? I wouldn't have suspected it would have been
$2 grand.
$2 grand.
Yeah, $2 grand.
Yeah, that was in the
$2
notes.
grand and a job, and then
Sorry, Dobbo. It's a 3-year deal.
What was that?
Your first contract
at
at the Broncos. $2,000 a year.
and a job.
Total of $6,000.
What was your first, if you don't mind me asking? What you were at the height of your game. You played for your country. You played for your state. What was the Super League contract?
Can I tell you a story? It was it ended up being 500.
Yep.
1,000.
That's a lot of money. A lot of money.
Bloody oath it was.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah, it was 300,000 more than I got.
so I'm pretty confident. And I've said this publicly anyway. So prior to Super League coming in, I advanced pretty quickly. And they didn't have managers, but John Rebo was always looking after me.
Well, you're one of the elite players in the game.
Yeah, and so
playing for
when I
Australia.
signed for the Super League, I hadn't signed yet. I was on 185, and I think Alf might have been higher than me. He was only
Alf was the highest paid player.
yeah. So I was on 185. That was 94. So, and then and I got that in 93, I think, and then he signed me that day. So I signed. So Reeves and I think the accountant were at our place at Wishart, and he said, "Look, what do you think about this? 3 years, 375,000 a year. If you sign now, here's 100 grand check." I was going, okay, you didn't ask me twice. And the funny thing was, so I signed, we're all set, and I just had my foot operated on. So I'm actually in a cast, right? And they leave, and me and my ex-wife were like, wow, how good's this? I'm watching the news, so this is 95, watching the news, and then I see that they sign Mullows, and I never take much notice that. They sign Mullows and ET for 500 grand, right? We just all toured together, right? In the
Australian team. Kangaroo team.
They gave me 375. I rung Reeves straight away. He answered the phone. He's just got out of the airport. And I said, Reeves, and he goes, hey, Bucko, what are you doing? I said, you got me. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I just watched the news. You signed a couple of the other boys. Anyway, he goes, oh, leave it with me. And hung up. Anyway, a week later, he sends a contract up, a new contract for 500. And it's funny because I was signing with Shane Edwards, and I'm signed the contract, and he said, just have a look at the dates on here. So Reeves had an extra year.
Is that right? 4 years.
I couldn't believe it.
Just that one phone call.
You know what? And everybody bags the media. If the news hadn't reported on Brett Mullins, they made you a rich man.
Oh, exactly, because I would have sat there and gone, who knows what anyone else is on.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I just toured with those two. We were in the 3 tests together.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, he was the current Australian centre. You played all the 3 tests over there and score and try. So, yeah, Super League. And how'd you feel about that, Pearl, signing that?
I felt great. Originally, I was a little bit disappointed how it all happened. You were too. You know, split because I thought rugby league was going really, really well, and it got us legs chopped off there for a while. And the worst thing about it is, so I think it was 96, and one of the big disappointing things, they picked a few of us. The ARL picked a few of us in the Aussie team, and I was one of them. I think it might have been 96.
Yeah,
anyway.
96. Yeah.
Anyway, virtually the club said to me, you can't play. And they got me to ring Arco. I had to ring him, and I was in tears saying I can't play
for Australia.
I turned down an Aussie jersey.
Gee whiz.
And that was hard. I'm 26, and then
peak of your powers.
Yeah, and you're going, I just turned down a test jersey. I went home, I was shattered.
Yeah.
I didn't have to make that phone call.
Origin. Can we talk about your Origin debut? Like, I love hearing. We talked a lot about it, and I mean, 91, you make your Origin debut. Yeah. Tell us about
Oh, mate, it was just one of those things. I remember I was at TAFE that day. I'll tell you when it used to get announced on the ABC radio, I think. Yeah. We never got told or rang. And I
just had to listen.
And it was you knew it was on the Tuesday, I think, in the afternoon. You knew what time you had to listen. So I'm driving home from TAFE. I think I'm in my little old Gemini I had. And driving
I remember
home.
that car. I remember that car.
And then I had the radio on because everyone was saying you're a fair chance. Anyway, I got named on the bench. Anyway, I was waiting. They went through the whole team. And I got my jersey on the bench. And I'm in the car by myself. And I'm bawling my eyes. I'm 21. I'm driving. I was like, what the hell? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't tell anyone. And anyway, but then to go into camp, that was special. You know, I think a lot of boys say this. To go into camp with legends like I played with, you know, Jacko and obviously Mal Meninga and Wally Lewis, and it's just amazing to be in camp with these guys that you grew up watching. But for me, being in the sheds prior to the game, this is what's so special. You get it when you're in the sheds and you see your jersey there, and I'm sitting there and Wally Lewis is giving me a get up speech before we run out in the Origin on the Old Lane Park.
Yeah, go on,
it is just amazing for a young man to do that. And as I always say, the Old Lane Park, when the King walked out, and you walk out, and that hits you, and we actually got warned of that. So we had managers talking and said, just so you know, this is what you're going to feel. And it was above that as a young player. And it was just like it hits you in the chest, and I'm nearly walking out, and I'm saying, "Don't cry, don't cry."
Yeah,
you know what I mean, because it's so emotional.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things, but it was just amazing.
And you got like your childhood. You watched Origin.
Oh yeah.
Did you idolise anyone that was playing?
Mel Meninga.
Mel.
Mel was always it. You know, as I said, at South.
And that was your first experience. Origin was at Suncorp. Did you play any underage football for Queensland at Suncorp?
No, I didn't.
That was like Gerald's. Gerald's first experience was game day. Bang, you're
game
on.
day, bang, you're out there, and
wow.
So for me, it was just amazing. As I said, really emotional that night, and I was on the bench. And I only got 20 minutes or so, or whatever. And I think it was a tight match, and it was just it was very
6-4. I think we won.
Yeah, 6-4, very special.
Graham Lowe was the coach. Remember?
Yeah, Lowe was the coach.
Yeah.
Do you think because of Super League, it probably cut your Origin career short a bit? Like because you guys were all banned for a few years.
Yeah, we missed a few there.
Yeah, and because of injuries, and I know you had a few injuries with your jaw and a few things like that. I know that didn't happen there, but like
I got my foot crushed here at Lane Park, and that was in the first game. I don't know what year that was, 93 or, but yeah, and then so I had a couple of bad, and then my first 2 years. I only played one game because I was only replacing injured players. I think it was Rowdy both times.
Yeah.
So I got one game, then Rowdy came back, and so and we had that many great centres and wingers.
There's a stack of that. Jacko, Tony Curry.
Yeah.
They were pretty deep with centres.
Yeah,
and you're only a young kid coming, but 94 you excelled and made the spot your own. It hasn't been all clean sailing for you. You've had a few injuries over your time, haven't you? Like you fractured your jaw one year. Tell us about some of your things that haven't gone quite so well for you.
That was prior to the 93 grand final.
Yeah, I remember.
So we played second last game of the season, and I had 5 weeks to come back, and we came from 5th. And Wayne Bennett once again. I come back from the party or whatever it was where I got my jaw broken. I didn't tell him. I told Kelvin. I rang Kelvin.
Well, you had a punch up on the grog.
I got king hit the morning after.
He got king hit. Went back for a 20. So we'd won the semi. Well, you tell the story, Pearl.
Yeah, so no, we won the game the Friday night. So I go back on the Saturday night for an 18th it was, sorry, my nephew's 18th. And then next morning there was a bit of a kerfuffle outside my mum's place. So I'd been asleep and I woke up and went out. My sisters are there, so I'm the only bloke there. And there's 4 lads there, and they were just. I said, look, that was nothing happened. They were told it was a non-truth, and anyway, I sort of turned to one guy, and the other guy, King, hit me, and he snapped, both sides of my jaw, and they said you could hear it. My sisters talked about that. They said you could hear it crack, and thank God it didn't drop to the ground. But anyway, I come back, and I said, well, I was telling Regan, my ex-wife, and she wasn't happy because she didn't come back with me. And I said, well, I don't want to tell Wayne. So I said, I'll ring Kelvin. So Kelvin organised me to go into the hospital to get the operation, and then he told Wayne.
Wow. Right, see, I don't know that story.
So I didn't get to see Wayne until after, probably the next day or day after I was out of hospital. My jaw's all like this, and it's all, taped together. And he come out and saw me. And don't you think I was shitting myself?
Yeah. Good Lord.
You know the bloke that put the king... I know.
I do know. He was... Look, we know the family. Close. My virtually my sister's married into the family. But he was young, and there was just a couple of the other boys that were with him, the doofuses, so he would have been spurred along, and he did time for it, and I felt he came up to me only a few years ago. He's on the streets of Brizzy, and I was out West End doing something, and he came down. He apologised, and I think it was a big regret that he ever did that.
Is that right? He actually came and apologised to you.
He saw me.
Well,
I passed the boys, and I waved to him, and he followed my car to where I parked, and he ran back to apologise. He said I should never, and I just gave him a hug. It's all good, bro.
Yeah, you probably remember Dobbo. So that's when Pearl's the headgear. He had the extra padding on the side.
That helped.
Was it Bulldogs when you came back?
Bulldogs, prelim.
So Bulldogs prelim into the grand final, and he scored 2 or 3 tries.
Scored one,
yeah. Scored a try, first touch. Yeah. Did you think we went crazy?
Guess who gave me the ball?
Kevin Wallace.
Was it? I can't remember, but
I dropped back inside.
Most of the times I passed it to you. I could pass a shit pass to you, and you would turn it into gold. So you were brilliant, mate.
Hey,
but
you go on and play a lot of football, and you did everything you possibly can. Which premiership means the most to you? I'm fascinated because I don't know. You always say the first one, don't you, Kev? For you, like as a Bronco.
Well, they're all sort of got different ideas around it, and there's 3 we did win were firsts of something. So our first ever for the Broncos, 92, first ever Queensland team to win it. Superleague, first ever one and only.
Yeah.
And 98, the inaugural NRL.
Yeah. Where all the teams came back together. And 97, you scored 3 tries. That must have been
that was special. But I'm the same as you, Kevin. The 92 grand final it always hold a special spot in my heart because I was at the club right from the start, and we got built into that club, and we played our way through one reserve grade. And I'm probably speaking on behalf of everyone, but behalf of the guys like Johnny Plath, Andrew G, Alan Cairn, because we all came through together, and then Kevie joined us, and Laz, and that's where the team sort of solidified into a perfect team when he came along, when Lazo came along. Especially, that sort of they're the players we needed to win a grand final, and it just all came together. It was a perfect storm. Yeah. We lost 4 games.
Yeah, that 92 team was
elite.
Yeah, it was elite.
We had this in my mind anyway. We were unbeatable, and Wayne used to say to us, "You'll only beat yourselves." So we only beat ourselves 4 times. That doesn't sound right, but we only beat ourselves 4 times, right. And that was special because we had that arrogance. We knew. If we were on our game, we're going to beat any team that would come in front of us.
We knew if we showed up and played to somewhere near our ability, we were going to win. That's not easy to do in the NRL, Dobbo. It's hard. So we had a great side, really good side. What about the 98 one, Pearl? When the teams come back together, 98 year, you had a good year there as well.
Yeah, it was a good year, and it was really good because we had the young boys coming through from 95. Darren Lockyer, Shane Webke, and then we had Gordy come in during Super League, and so there was a good mixture. It was a good balance of young and old.
Yeah,
and so we had the maturity, but we had these guns coming through, and didn't they perform?
Yeah, Well, Lockie was starting to stand up. Tony Carroll. Mick DeVere was in
Chief
that side.
Chief was there, and it was a pretty good side, you know what I mean? And Brad Thorne. Our forward pack was pretty Shane Webke, Brad Thorne, Gordon Tallis.
GG was in there.
Tunza.
GG. It's unbelievable.
And then you got Big Dell floating around there then, he was on one of the wings.
Yeah.
Gordy was in there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good.
It was an amazing team.
Unbelievable.
The Kangaroo Tour in 94, was that a shock for you or something that you'd look like? I remember my first Kangaroo Tour was something that I just dreamed of as a kid. Would that be the same for you? Was that something?
No, because by that time, from where I came when I was a 17-year-old up to them, it was just like, I want to be in this Kangaroo Tour, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a target of mine in my head, where prior to that, I just took what came to me. So, but, and that was special. And don't you? So you did too, though, didn't you?
I did too, yeah. I was
so
lucky. I was an emu, though. You were a genuine kangaroo.
You're a very good emu too. Just
and Mal was the captain of that tour, so that would have been special for you well.
It was special, and it was his last tour, and that's another thing of my career that I think about, that I got to do that with Mel.
Yeah.
Right from first Origin to my first test.
I remember that last test. Ricky Stewart flicked past to Dean Pay, or Dean Pay flicked past to Ricky Stewart. They scored a try right at the end to win the third test.
Oh yeah.
That was a 3-test series, and
we won all up until then,
and then you won the last one. It would have been Mal's last game as well.
Yeah, and I do remember that game because it was at Leeds. I think it was at Leeds.
Yeah.
Allen Road,
Leeds. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, and we were under the pump because as I said before, you don't want to be the first
team to lose
anything, especially at that.
We were riding you boys hard. The Emus were riding you boys hard, I can tell you.
Go on, mate.
And then after that, we went to France, right? Now
yes.
you got some French history in your family, haven't you?
Yeah, just the surname is originally from out there, and sort of I forget what they call it, but we got our own coat of arms.
What, the Renouf?
The Renoufs. So really, we're not that far a generation out. So this is on my dad's side. So his dad, I'd say it would have been his dad's father or grandfather. The three brothers came out back in the day.
Right.
Yeah, but they come from the Jersey Islands, but the name is of
French heritage, yeah.
Oui.
Yeah. What do you make of Earl? And it's pretty current at the moment, players giving up the Australian jersey to play for another nation. And I struggle with it. I'm not a professional footballer, but I struggle. I'd be interested to know, you said earlier just how it was everything for you to play for your country, and how having to say you couldn't play brought tears to your eyes. Do you struggle now when there's players that, and I know it's a bit controversial, but they're like, okay, now I'm going to go and play for Samoa. Like Payne's making that decision now, or Tino's making that decision, and they give up playing for the country that they were born and bred in.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's never sat well with me because I think guys like Tony Carroll did it, but he came back the other way. So Tony Carroll. So he went to New Zealand, then come back to Australia.
It does happen.
It does happen, but you kept probably. I sort of go, oh really? You know what I mean? And the thing is that you played for Australia already, so. Yeah. If you chose and you were given that opposite, that could have gone to someone else.
Yeah. Not
to be too harsh, but that jersey could. So what does that jersey mean to you?
Yeah.
So you hold an Australian jersey, the highest. That's our
right.
Pinnacle.
So
that's our pinnacle.
Right.
It should be everyone's pinnacle, and then you can just drop out and go to another country. And I know they got, one of their parents, but that's my thought. I'm an Aussie.
So you got what's your order of specialty and most proudest moments? Playing for Australia first?
Of course.
Yep. Queensland second?
Yep.
Then your club side.
Then your club. And I must admit, I probably had that little bit obscured when I was playing. I sort of prioritised the Broncos, around stuff early, solely because that's where I felt comfortable and, obviously playing for Australia. Is your pinnacle, my pinnacle.
And so, what's your special moment in your rugby league? Not in football, not away from. We'll get to outside of footy in a minute. Dobbo will, but in football, what's been your best moment? You feel that you look back on and think, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
Probably, you nearly go to sign my contract when I was 17-year-old.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Because that's the start of your career. You know what I mean.
And you're always confident you were going to make it.
Not necessarily, but I knew I could. I was confident in myself that I could play the game, and I just knew that it was going to be tougher because going from Mergen, it was just a step up, and you can remember playing reserve grade, and even training up from reserve, then go when you got pulled in the first grade. Even that training was another level. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that.
You didn't train much, so you always found another level.
But you know what I mean.
He knows. Look at him laughing. He knows. But hey, Sunday, Wayne said, on Sunday he'll be right.
But playing for Australia. I mean,
that's a good answer, mate.
Yeah.
Right, now we're going to jump back to your Super League because you finished at the Broncos. How was your finish at the Broncos? How did that end up?
It wasn't perfect, but I don't think any ending at any, I had a bit of a bingle with Wayne, but that was all okay. That was just,
Well, tell us what happened. This is.
It's just.
It's free to air here.
It's free to air. So what happened? Gilly was doing an article in the Courier Mail. He had a segment in the Courier Mail, and he asked me about it, and I was a bit filthy because what happened, I'd broke my arm. That's how I ended my season, and then in that period, I was renegotiating.
This is 99.
99, yeah, I was renegotiating with the club, and it was chewing and throwing, and then I had a couple of chats to Wayne. I won't say what was said, but to me, and then the offers were dropping a bit.
Going
every time
down.
I spoke to him. Anyway, I then just overnight signed with Wigan.
Right. So
didn't tell anyone.
Did you know you had obviously you knew
contract? Yeah,
with them.
Yeah, I knew with them.
But did Wayne know?
No, not at all. Anyway, and then I told him at training because I was out, injured with the broken arm. Yeah. But the big one was when I signed, he got a bit filthy at me, and what happened when I was injured, there was a game. I think they were playing Cronulla.
Yeah,
an away game, and usually they'll take.
If you're a senior player,
and you're injured, you go. Anyway, I was off the list, and I was like, what? I said, I was that quick, I was like that. I was really shocked, and I was a bit upset with it. Yes. And we had a bit of a one-on-one at training one day, and I just said, you lied to me. That's the only time I said you reneged on what you told me. He told me in one conversation that we owe you boys, and in that conversation, standing in the training room, he goes, "We don't owe you anything." And I was like, "Wait."
Yeah,
but they're the heated things you have.
Yeah, if I can put my coach's hat on, which I've had to do that to players, it's never easy.
No,
but you had a great career at the Broncos. Then you went over to the Wigan Warriors. Yeah, and I remember visiting you over there when I was with what are you laughing at?
You loved every minute of it, didn't you?
No, I didn't, but you did. I
loved it.
Still scored a try. I had to play against him one day. Our centre got hurt a bit in the game. I was playing for Warrington, and Darryl said, "You got to mark Pearl," and I said, "Oh my God, you're joking."
I remember when he came out. She came off the bench, did you?
Yeah, I came off.
Anyway, I didn't notice, and I think we're coming out of our quarter. I looked up, and it's Kevin.
That's Kevin doing there.
And he's going.
You're going like this.
No, he's going.
I remember, please don't run.
Yeah, he's like, no, do it.
And I managed to get a hold of him somehow with some help. And I said to him, "Pearl, do not call for the ball or run at me. You will make me look like a fool." He said, "Don't worry, Kev, I got your back, mate." He scored 4 tries.
It was fun. I actually had a really good time there the 2 years, and
with your family and the
life.
Yeah,
with my family. Freddie was born there, my youngest, in 2001. So it was my only.
And you made 2 grand finals, did you?
Made 2 grand finals. We lost them both. So I came from Brisbane, win every grand final, and then go over there and lost 2. But it's good to have that feeling. But obviously, playing at a club like Wigan, it was just like playing here in Brisbane.
Yeah,
you had all the internationals, and Andy Farrell was our captain, and Chris Walensky was our full. We had some gun players.
Yeah, it would have been a nice way to finish your career over there. Obviously,
it was, and I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah,
because in my mind, I always wanted to go to England, but I think because I was still, I didn't want to go over there. I was too old, and just waste my time. And
but
I was enjoying my footy, which means you enjoy your life, as we know.
Makes sense.
So that was okay, and we had a great time, and my family over there, and we started school over there, and
great experience. Then you come back and you finish off. Was it 1 year or 2 years with the East Tigers?
No, I had 2 years retired. Then I went back to East to play half a season. Darren Smith got me, and at a lunch, and so I was already retired 2 years, but I was keeping fit. I was right into it, and then I played half a season. We
made the grand final.
Broke my arm again. That was it.
Right. That was it. Retired.
That was it. Done. Ended.
Right,
mate. It came to an end. But am I right in saying? I mean, you talked about your Hall of Fame, but you were named in the Indigenous Team of the Century.
Yeah,
and we will get to just the unbelievable work you do with Deadly Choices and how I don't know what Kev thinks, but I look at you now and I think that's been your greatest legacy. and I'll get to that. But being a proud Indigenous man, to be named that, what does that mean for you and your family? Like, and I understand being a Hall of Famer but the Indigenous side of it, I think to me was a way more special.
Yeah, and it was. When you look at some of the players and you see the list that was there in front of people and to get selected in that team, it was special and meant a lot. As you said, Dobbo, it meant a lot to me and my family. So a lot, and this is probably the thing I didn't mention. Everything I did, my family always, my first thought was my family. Even the first grand final. And then ultimately, to be in that team of the century it was on another level. And it's something that as I said, you never look for accolades or those sort of things. But it's just an absolute honour to be named in that team, to be honest. And you see some of the names in there. So some of the names that they're my mob. You know what I mean? So so Big Shot Fisher. They got his comp on this weekend actually, up in Cherbourg. They got a trophy. They're playing up there in his name, and he was named in that. From out of the old Cherbourg mission. That's pretty special. He made his name out of there.
How'd you get named the Pearl?
The Pearl is so reserve grade. Would have been 89. I was playing reserve. We were having a game of touch after training, and Ellery Hanley was over here. He's the Black Pearl, from England. He's playing for Balmain. And I still remember, and I scored a try at the end of training playing touch, and a player called Brooke Kennedy. You remember?
Yeah, I remember Brooke. Yeah.
So Brooke is a second rower, and he yells out. He goes, "Oh, it's the new Black Pearl," and that was it. It's just stuck. It just stuck, and it's quite funny because no one calls me Steve.
No.
These days, not especially you guys and
everybody calls you Pearl.
Yeah, and I go into go up the road and everyone goes, "Who's Pearl?" People don't know you. And they go, I said, that's me. Then you got to go to the rigmarole of telling them. But that's how it happened. That's exactly how it happened because Ellery Hanley was the original Black Pearl. And
do you like the nickname?
Yeah, I do. I do. And obviously these days it's not the Black Pearl. It's the Pearl, and it just means something special because your peers, your peer, like some people, I shouldn't say just boys, give themselves their own nicknames. Isn't that a bit of a wank?
Yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah.
It's like because I had a nickname at home, Bucko. Kevie knows me as Bucko, and
I call you Pearl or Bucko.
Bucko, yeah. So I grew up with that. Then I came to Brisbane, and then everyone's at home going, "Why are they calling you the Pearl?"
Yeah.
I said, "That's my nickname." And they go, "No, it's not nickname." So they were like full on. Your nickname's Bucko.
And why Bucko?
That came from an uncle who was a bull rider, and I was namesake of him and the family down. So Stephen Collin, his name was Collin, and he was a
bull rider. Proper.
And his nickname was
There you
Bucko.
go, Dobbo. There's a link.
There's a link.
Do you know him?
No, I don't know him, but I know where he's from. I know the South Burnett, what a proud area it is. It's a rugby league nursery. We don't give it enough credit.
Yeah, I know. There, Sherbet, the whole South Burnett was back in the day. Rugby league was it. That's all there was when we grew up. And we had a lot of our senior boys, which my brothers were a part of that. So growing up in Mergen, I looked up to my brothers, because Warren played Queensland under-18s with, I think, Nevy Langer.
Yeah, right.
In 82.
Yep.
He was the winger. And one of your brothers might have been that team too.
Might have been Stephen, yeah. Stevie was.
Stephen was in the same team. There you go.
There you go, mate. So Pearl, I know you like your culture. You're very strong with your culture. And you work with Deadly Choices, sort of gives you an opportunity, doesn't it, to support your dad, Charlie, was very strong in that space, wasn't he, in the 70s and 80s?
Yeah, 70s and 80s. So 70s, Dobby will get this, growing up in Mergen, Joe Country, Joe Confiders Country, and there was our local member and premier. So Dad had to push through. Like they were agitators. They called them agitators, and he was one of them. And so they did a lot of picketing. We used to have pickets being done under our house. I thought they were doing some artwork, and they Joe was coming down, they'd go and pick it outside wherever he was.
Yeah.
And he started, in that same era in the 80s, he started the first Aboriginal housing in the South Burnett, and also legal service.
Yeah.
And to do that back then was just...
Beyond his years.
Beyond his years.
And
so
brave.
what I'm doing compared to what he's doing, what he did is, as I said, he was a bit more ballsy than I was, my old man. Mind you, I told you he could box, so I can't. But, but what I'm doing for Deadly Choices is for our community, and it started off, and I just went and worked for one of the medical centres out here at the Gab, the Mabra medical centres, and then the Institute for Urban Indigenous Health, and I went along with them, and it's just good to see on the faces, and I love doing the elders, and they love you, like they just love you to bits, and they just love having you around. I was just with them the other day, opened a new extension of our clinic at Goodna, during the week. So that so it's actually, for me, it's community. And you talk to any of the ambassadors, and Deadly Choices ambassadors, Willie Tonga and the likes, and it's all about the community. So it's sort of where I'll go to spend time with my community around here, wherever it is, and I use that as my sort of calming.
Your therapy,
Yeah, my therapy, yeah. I sort of,
because you did lose your dad, didn't you, in 92?
Yeah, 92 started.
He would have been very young.
64, but he had an emphysema. So this is another, Dad was a big smoker, and he ended up having a heart attack, but that was because of that. And I still remember, because he just loved the footy, he loved my footy, and he was really supportive, I was the youngest son as well, and my two older brothers were pretty good players. And he used to take me along to watch them, and but then I still remember when he passed, and we had to go to play a pre-season game in New Zealand, and it was a week after, and I still remember, and Mum said no, because I was going to pull out, and she just said no, your dad doesn't want you here, he wants you over there playing footy.
That's good.
So,
is it true we used to go to your training and flash the headlights to...
Yeah, when I scored a try.
Yeah. No, the headlight, the bulb and the battery would have been flat, mate.
I reckon. Because the Gemini, you remember?
Yeah.
That's the car he used to sit in. I bought it off him for $1,000. And I scored a try, and we're walking back, and he's like, dit, and I'm
yeah. Deadly Choices. And you've been very... How important is that to you now? And I think we're really closing the gap, but society would show that there's still very much a divide. I think you just saying to me how playing for your country is the greatest thing ever shows just how much you love this country and that we are equal. But the work you've done in Deadly Choices and trying to close the gap, and especially here in Rugby League, has been quite phenomenal. How important is that? Because I look at your legacy now, and I think that's your greatest legacy. Yes, you were the league player, but what you've done in that area has been just phenomenal.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to get that opportunity when it first started. So I've been there since we started the Institute for Urban Indigenous Health, and we got our medical centres, and then so the Institute came first, and then Deadly Choices came after, and that was the engagement program. But it's made a lot of difference. And Dobbo, you talk about closing the gap, but when you see the figures of close the gap, that's a national figure.
Yep.
So I can nearly 99% say what we do in our cohort here in southeast Queensland, there's areas where we actually are, but you don't get to see them in the national figures,
right? Because
they all get put together.
Yeah.
And I posted something today because I was on radio yesterday, and we do radio show, Deadly Choices Radio on Triple A, and we just started that a few weeks ago, and had one of the ladies from our birthing in our community program, and we have centres around the city. And they're definitely closing the gap with newborns and, going full term. So in our own right here, there's a lot of things happening. Because I can guarantee you, some of the programs we ran back when we started, what was that, 12, 14 years ago? So we do centres with elders. And so we go into gyms and they're assisted. And I can guarantee you there's a handful of them, or if not a lot of them, that if they went in that program doing exercise control by exercise physiologists, and we used to be in there, and then the education during that session, they spent about 2 hours in the morning, and that's ongoing, and we got that around the country. Their lives have been extended just by that program alone. Those individuals. So I can guarantee you, I knew a couple of them that come in, they were stroke victims, and they originally from from Cherbourg, sorry. And then without that program, which is still ongoing, they probably would have, you can guarantee they would have passed 3 years early or whatever.
What about the blokes like Selwyn Cobbo, young Indigenous boys from your area? I mean, he's from Cherbourg, same sort of area. I look at him and I go, well, you know what, that's one of them. And I feel like there's, for every Selwyn Cobbo and Steve Renouf, there's probably 10 blokes who could have done the same thing, who had the same ability, who just probably didn't have the parenting, probably didn't have the same upbringing where you were focused, like you talked about being rare. Is that valid? Like that we probably need to be?
It is, Dobbo. I just spoke the other day about this to someone about the exact same thing, that there's heaps of young men that came through even before me. Gordy Langton.
I played with Gordy at
Ipswich.
He was fast. Oh, him and Alfie had unbelievable
chip and chase.
Yeah,
and it was amazing. And there's guys like Darryl Harrison and the Stafford Sando, and I can keep naming them. And I grew up around all those guys, and they were far better footy players than I was when we were growing up. And it's just that next level, So it's just, I think it's the support coming out of the community. I was lucky enough. I had two sisters here my first year, and then my ex-wife came down, and I was okay.
You had good support around.
I had good support around me down here, and so for me that was I was still, I reckon the first 18 months I was still homesick and
wanted to go home.
Yeah, wanted mum to cook for me again. That was a big thing. But there was a lot of players. They don't have to go far. I saw Madge went up there the other week, and Kevie knows this. Now you go up there, you can handpick a few of those lads out of there. If you can get them and keep them straight, there's a lot of Selwyn Cobbos up there, I'll tell you. There is.
What else happened in your life now, Pal?
Yeah, so I'm on the Northwest Hospital Board, which is Mount Isa.
Yeah.
Sean Bergen, he's a good man up there.
Sorry?
Sean Bergen, he's a good man.
Oh, you know Sean?
Yeah, well, he's a CEO.
He's a CEO.
People.
Oh, there you go.
People.
What a great bloke.
He's connected, this bloke.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, this bloke is connected.
It's so true, though, what Dobbo's saying. He has changed that hospital around to no end, and it's amazing the work they're doing. So him and the chair are really good people, so that makes it really good. But yeah, so I do a bit of that. I'm going back into the diabetes. I've been 32 years this year.
Wow.
Type 1 diabetic. So it's so I've gone back in there with a couple of companies, doing a bit of work for them. So yeah,
one of the greats.
Yeah, thanks, mate. One
of the greats. I reckon we've got.
Yeah, we are. But I'm just going to finish it off, right? I'm going to finish it off with a quote from Roy Masters. This was his comments on you. I'm not sure what year it was, but Roy Masters said, "When Steve Renouf takes the ball and surges forward, you sense that this is how God wants football to be played." And I got to agree with Roy, because playing inside you was just so magical for me, because one, you made me look so much better, and two, I was the closest person to you on the field to just watch you just mesmerise defenders time and time again. And a lot of players score a lot of tries. These wingers and that these days. We got our own thoughts on wingers, Dobbo and I, right? But none of your tries were just give me the ball and let me run and I'll put it over the line. You actually, a lot of your tries, you're beating 2 and 3 defenders on every try, and you scored 143 of them. If the corner posts weren't in play in your day, do you think how many more tries do you reckon you would have scored?
Yeah, I think most of the time that was the wingers, and I didn't go too close.
No, that's right. I look back through a lot of your tries, and all of them, you're stepping and you bang, you're gone, and you're running around.
There was a couple in the corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about it, because I didn't go really too close to the corner post, to be honest.
No, and your favourite try, because you're a try scorer, was the one in the World Cup. Was that your favourite, or the grand final?
Oh, Both. Grand final, though. But grand final, yeah.
That must have been great running past your mum and waving to her. And, how are you, mum?
I didn't wave.
And your 10 brothers and sisters. Were all your brothers and sisters there as well?
No, she just had a sister, so only one came down. And I still remember because, and I always tell the story about her because she was a non-drinker. And she's sitting up with the Bronco crew.
Oh, right.
So she's sitting behind Donna Lynch, from Donna.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're all having beers, and she sees me running. She's up on the chairs, and she's just
knocked all the beers
out. Everyone.
Wouldn't mind. Anyway, Pearl, mate, legend having you on.
Legend.
You're such a great bloke. And what I like most, and Dobbo said as well, what you're doing now for your people and your community and rugby league, everything. We love you, mate, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Kevie.
You're not going home empty-handed. We have got an inside ball shirt for you.
Yeah,
Oh, very good.
And we've got a dinner for you at the Caxton Hotel with the other guys that are coming on the show. We're going to organise a night where we all get together and spin a few yarns. We know you like your time at the Caxton. You and Alfie. He's an ambassador.
Alan, he's the ambassador.
Yeah, so we'll get that organised, but we really appreciate you coming on. And great to see, not only to go back over your career, because I love watching you, I love playing with you, but also what you're doing away from footy now. It's amazing, mate. So congratulations.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate
Good on you,
it.
Pearl.
Thanks, bro.
Love you,
Thanks,
brother.
Kevin. Love you.
Cheers,
Thanks,
mate.
Dobbo.